Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and I'm so glad you're here today, taking the time to dive deeper into understanding yourself. And I think today's topic is going to be one that is really, really juicy. It's definitely one that hits home for me. We're going to be talking about why resolution won't give you control. And if you're wondering what exactly this topic is about that feeling of resolution, that feeling of completion. Right? If you're anything like me, you found yourself chasing that feeling of resolution more times than you can count. Like you just want to get to the place where it's like everything that's living inside you, all the chaos, all of the energy that feels like it's just all over the place, it's over, right? Like you just want it to be done. Maybe it's after a long, stressful day. Maybe it's after feeling out of control in other areas of your life. But I know that for me, such a big reason why I emotionally ate, why I binged, why even, when I was binging and purging, I wanted that feeling of empty, I'm like done, I'm relief, complete, right? Like it's complete. And I used to believe that food and, those behaviors, destructive behaviors with food, with eating, with binging and purging would give me that sense. I used to think that it would give me that feeling of resolution. I used to think that those behaviors would just put a lid on all the emotions that I didn't want to feel. And I felt like if I could just have this little area of my life that I could control, it would make everything else easier to manage. It would make everything else controllable. But here is the thing. It was like that sense of control never came. It was always an illusion. I wasn't fixing anything. I was really just numbing myself for a little while. It was just like an escape, right? It wasn't a real solution. And I know that I'm not alone in this. So let's get into talking about what resolution is and why we lie to ourselves, essentially, when we turn to food for this sense of resolution, for this sense of completion. And, you might turn to food. Everyone turns to food in their own way, right? Like some people might be binging. Some people might be binging and purging. Some people might be binging and over-exercising. So whatever you're looking for to feel that sense of completion and exploiting food and your body in a way to get there, let's talk about it. Okay, I remember when I was deep into my struggle with emotional eating. And the truth is that I wasn't just turning to food because I was hungry. And I think that isn't a unique thing to me. I wasn't turning to food because I was hungry. I was turning to food because I wanted to fix something inside of me. I wanted to fix something that I couldn't name. And I think that was the hardest part, right? It was like a sensation. It felt like a monster. It felt like something, it felt like this energy that was living inside me that I just wanted to just make disappear. And it was this need to resolve all the internal chaos I felt. Like I said earlier, what I didn't realize at the time was I was chasing resolution. I was trying to put a bow on every uncomfortable feeling or situation. I just wanted to wrap it up. I just wanted it to go away. And I was hoping that that's what would happen, that once I ate enough, it would go away. Once I did enough of my, binging and purging stuff, it would just go away. But that doesn't really happen, right? Resolution through food, It's a complete lie. It gives you this momentary relief, right? When you're staring into the fridge or the pantry, searching for something to make it feel better, searching for, you think you're going to get to that end of the road where you're like, okay, it's gone. I've handled it. That doesn't happen. The emotions you're trying to bury, they're still there, right underneath the surface. You think you've solved something, but really, all that's happened is those feelings are pushed even farther down and you're less connected to yourself. You're less connected to yourself. And that's the tricky part. Because in those moments where we're emotionally eating, in those moments where we're turning to our destructive behaviors with eating and food, what we're really craving is a sense of ease, completion, relaxing, right? Something where we're just relief, right? We want to feel like it's okay. We want to feel like it's resolved. This feeling of, I feel like the best way to say it is completion, really. We've solved whatever that energy is within us. We want to feel like it's solved, it's done. But food can't do that. Behaviors with food, it can't do that. And I feel like that's so important for us to really understand. It might make us feel better for a short term. While we're doing our behaviors, while we're binging and purging, while we're doing all this stuff, it might distract us from stuff, but it's a distraction. It's not fixing the root of what we're really feeling. And if you've been there, the pattern of all of this, the cycle of all of this, it only makes things worse over time. Because every time we use food to resolve an uncomfortable feeling, we desensitize ourselves. We desensitize ourselves to not only to our limits, but we become less in tune with our body's emotions, with our body's signals, with where we need to put up a boundary, where we need to have a standard, where we need to maybe communicate ourselves, where we can find clarity in our values and our needs. Every time we use food to resolve, we become less connected to ourselves. And that's why emotional eating often spirals, because the connection is where the resolution is. Right? The more we know ourselves and our boundaries and our standards, and the better we're able to communicate that, and the more we're able to live in an empowerment within ourselves, that's where the control really is. And for me, in my personal story, when I was constantly chasing control with food, resolution, completion with food, I never found it. I just ended up feeling more scatterbrained, more out of control, more likely to get triggered and feel like I couldn't handle it. And with the eating, and then what would happen is like the eating would just be like, it would just add, because I'd feel guilty about the eating. I'd feel guilty about the eating behaviors. Then I would notice weight gain. Then I would didn't like how I looked in my body. I didn't like how I felt in my body. I felt completely disconnected from myself. So I didn't feel confident. Socially, right? It was like it all kind of just layered on each other. And it was a cycle that I didn't know how to break. And the real kicker of it all was that I was trying to control my emotions because I thought they would overwhelm me, when at the end of the day, what overwhelmed me was this behavior with eating and food. Right? It intensified my stress. Maybe it took away the stress for like the half hour to 3 hours that I spent in my routine, my binging routine, or whatever it ended up being. But it wasn't long term, and it kept me feeling really, really stuck. And ultimately, enough time would go by that I would turn to food again. Right? Like after you have like a binge episode or something, and you feel just so gross and that guilt, you're like, I'm never going to do this again. And then a couple of days later, because you don't have the skills of what to do instead, you do it again, right? So I would do it again. And so it's like, I just was in this cycle, And the cycle was keeping me really, really stuck. And I think that if you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh my God, this is very triggering for me," I understand. And I think that what we need to do, and I want to give you something to work on today, is how do we start to deconstruct the belief that resolution equals control or that completion equals control? That finding some sort of take the air out and flatten the balloon, right? It's like, I just want it to be done, right? Some sort of solve is what equals that sense of peace and quote unquote control that you're looking for. So for me, it began with turning towards emotions and understanding that the emotions I was trying to avoid weren't bad. They were just uncomfortable. So I started to separate what I was feeling inside from myself. So if I was feeling anxious, I stopped saying I am anxious and I started saying I am experiencing anxiety. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. You want to detach your own identity and self from the feelings in your body. Okay, this is what I want you to do after listening to this episode. And then I would love for you to comment and tell me how it went, because this is massive. It seems so small, but I think we go around being like, I'm anxious. But what if you said, I am having an anxious moment, right? Or I am experiencing anxiety, right? So the anxiety is there, but you are not anxious. Like you are anxious, but let's try to make a separation. And that separation is a pause. That separation is going to help, right? It's like same thing with emotional eating, right? It's like, yes, we are emotional eaters. However, to start healing from emotional eating, we need to start to separate our own inherent like selves from the act of emotional eating. And that is really, really important because then you have space. And when you have space, you could start to bring curiosity. And when you have curiosity, you can make change. So trust me, this is not easy at first because we're so used to reacting immediately when we feel something we don't want to feel. So this is going to take practice. And sometimes you're not going to notice until after the fact, after you've already binged. But that noticing retroactively is actually really important for changing this behavior in the long run. Because eventually you're going to notice it before you do it. And then you can make the change. So when that starts to happen, when that familiar urge to reach for food comes up, that's when you pause. That's when you ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What am I trying to resolve with food? And usually sometimes it's stress, sometimes it's loneliness, sometimes again, it's that need to just make it go away, to resolve, right? And that's why this episode is about resolution, because resolution is a construct. Resolution is found within yourself when you could be okay with your emotions, when you're okay with feelings and whether they're comfortable or whether they're uncomfortable, because you know that they're going to rise, they're going to abide, and they're going to go. So asking yourself, what am I really feeling? And then trying to name it, because I remember in the beginning of this for me, I couldn't even name feelings. It was like the only feeling that I was able to name was like, I'm pissed, right? And anger is usually the first emotion that we start to feel as we begin to heal. So that's not abnormal, or that's actually very normal and very good. But we want to start to be more nuanced about what emotions we're feeling. So I'm disappointed, I'm frustrated, I'm, anxious, I'm insecure, I don't know, just like more nuanced. And in some of my programs and some of the workbooks that I have a huge amount of lists of this. So you can journal, right? Like the more you start to be able to have language around your emotions, the more you're able to name what's going on in your body, that's when you're going to feel that resolution. It's not about changing the experience. It's about being able to understand the experience, name it clearly so that it's not a mystery. That's really what we're searching for. And if we know and we understand it's not a mystery, then we're really in control. That's when the healing begins. And emotions are natural, right? Like emotions are natural, cravings are natural, charged feelings in our body is natural. They're not something that we need to control or fix, right? Like I said, they're going to rise, they're going to abide, they're going to leave. They're part of the human experience. So when you stop trying to judge yourself or engage so deeply with emotions and just different sensations of energy in the body, they pass, like I said, so much faster than you think. And you're able to know yourself and you're able to provide more understanding for yourself, more self-compassion, more grace for yourself. And that's what your self is looking for from the food, right? It's looking for grace. It's looking for permission to just have relief. But you being there for you, naming what's going on with you and just letting it be, right? Trusting that your own curiosity, your own ability to be with whatever's going on within you, that's the key. And for me personally, I had to learn that I didn't need to be perfect at controlling my emotions. I didn't need to be perfect at controlling my eating. That wasn't really the issue. I needed to show myself forgiveness. I needed to show myself empathy. I needed to allow myself to be fluid and flexible and trust. And that's where the true resolution lived. The more I was able to let myself be more fluid and flexible and not be perfect and, live with uncomfortable feelings, I got more of that verified evidence that I got to that feeling of resolution. I got to that feeling of peace without needing food to help me get there, because ultimately food never helped me get there. Yeah. And that's really what I want you to take away from this. So if you're listening today and any of this resonates with you, I want you to listen to this again. And the first step again that I said is to detach your own identity from the feelings that are inside and try to name it differently, right? Name the feeling that you're experiencing. Don't make it about you. Okay. And I want you to remember that you're not alone in this. The chase for resolution and control with food and eating is something so many of us go through. So many of us go through, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Healing is possible. 100% healing is possible. And I want to share something with you. If you're ready to dive even deeper into this work, I am inviting you to join my new Eat Freely, Live Fully mentorship. It is a life-changing coaching and accountability experience and is designed to help you understand your food triggers, reconnect with your hunger and fullness cues, and you can learn to eat whatever you want without rules. You're regulating your emotions. You're naturally losing weight so you can live with freedom and joy. And this is really possible without macros, without deprivation, without medication. And as an introductory offer, I'm offering 30 days as a trial for $33, no strings attached. You could just click the show notes for the details and you can jump right in and get started. Okay, so as always, thank you so much for a great opportunity to talk to you. I'm wishing you a great week. And remember that whatever you're working towards, however you feel in your life, you can do it, you can make change, and you are worth it. So until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.